Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm chatting with James Anderson from Guanajuato Silver. In this interview, we will discuss James' overall thesis on silver, whether he thinks retail investors can have a material impact on the silver market. We will get into his venture, Guanajuato Silver. I'll ask him about the company's cap table, who their major investors are. We'll get into the various projects that the company has and the challenges of operating in an environment where the silver price is hovering around the $23 mark. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. James, it's the first time we've had you on. I have to ask you about your thesis on silver. I'm sure that when you wake up in the morning and you think about silver, there's things that get you out of bed, that get you excited. What is your overall thesis on silver?
Yeah, okay. So many people have commented over the years that silver is both a precious metal and an industrial metal. Oftentimes people will ask me, which one of those two things that do I think that it is? And usually I like to quip that when the price of silver is going higher, it is both of those things. And when the price of silver is going lower, it is neither of those things. So the reason why we have created the company and built the company into Mexico's fastest growing silver mining company is more of the industrial angle. There are a lot of studies these days, which I agree with, and I am a proponent of, that would suggest that within just 2 or 3 more years, as much as 25% of the world's mined silver will have to be used for photovoltaics for the solar panel industry. If that's the case, in a very, very inelastic marketplace for silver, where as much as 75% of silver comes as byproduct from other mines, I think it's going to be very difficult for the silver mining industry to be able to put silver-ish mines into production quickly to meet that demand. Therefore, I think the price of silver can go significantly higher before there's any kind of a demand response.
All right. So during the heydays of the pandemic, we saw the words silver squeeze start to appear all over social media. I have to ask, do you think it's feasible that retail investors could actually have a material impact on the price of silver?
Well, I think they can have a material impact on the price of silver. And I think, in fact, in that time frame, I think it would be very difficult to argue that they didn't have a significant impact on the price of silver. However, over a long term, commodities are commodities. There will come a certain price. I don't know whether that's $35 or $40 an ounce, where retail silver holders will find it more desirable to sell silver rather than to buy it. And that's when we get some kind of equilibrium. I think that equilibrium can be higher from here. I think that retail investment demand for silver, I think, has always been important to the silver market. I think it will continue to be. And I also think that brand of silver acquisition is much stickier than some people would have you believe. I think that it's unlikely that with a $5 or $10 or even a $10 move in the price of silver, that anyone is going to go out and sell grandpa's silver coins that were given, to us, right? If the price of silver goes up by $40, well, then all of a sudden grandpa's silver coins look better being sold than held. So for those reasons, I think retail acquisition of silver is a lot stickier than a lot of people think.
So when I look at various silver producers, and yourselves included, it seems like there's not a whole lot of margin right now in terms of the price that silver is selling for versus the cost. And it just makes me think, have we reached a point in the market where we're going to see production of silver just really sort of trail off until the price of silver ultimately goes up, because the economics down here just don't really make a whole lot of sense?
Yeah, I think it's a great observation, and I think it's a great question, and I think that all of us involved in the silver mining business, need to look very soberly at those exact questions. Many of the medium-sized silver mining companies have all-in sustaining costs that are north of $20 an ounce, including us. There are some good reasons why we do, because we have bought fixer-uppers, and a lot of our costs A lot of our all-in sustaining costs are associated with capex related to putting these mines back into production. But if you look across the board, our all-in sustaining costs are not significantly different than a lot of the other producers. So, what does that mean? I think that that 80-1 or even 82-1 ratio between silver and gold that we've seen for a long time is going to have to narrow, and the price of silver is going to have to go comparatively higher than gold for a lot of the marginal mines, and there are many marginal silver mines out there to remain in production. If I can talk about this for another moment or two, much of the world's mined silver comes as byproduct, right? We said 75% a minute ago. So a lot of it comes from zinc and lead operations that have silver as byproduct. The price of zinc has gone from about $1.40 to $1.10 a pound over the last 6 months or so. So unless that changes, you're going to have other mines under great financial stress that will not be able to continue to produce silver as byproduct. So what breaks first here, Steve? The smaller producers, the marginal producers, or the silver market to a higher equilibrium price? I don't know. I sure hope it's the latter.
So let's talk about you guys, Guanajuato Silver. It's your first time on here. Many in our audience are unfamiliar with the story. What's the high level overview?
Well, we have created what we like to call Mexico's fastest growing silver mining company over a very short period of time, just a little over 2 years. We have purchased 4 mines, 3 production facilities. We've done that at extraordinarily good prices, picking up El Cubo, which was held by Endeavor Silver for many years, for only $15 million US, and it took us about $10 million to put it back into production to the way it is today. And then we purchased all of the Mexican silver operations of Great Panther, which included 3 additional mines, 2 production facilities for a very similar amount of money. So we've purchased these assets very cheaply, but I would say again to your listening audience, these are fixer-uppers, and they have needed and continue to need additional capex to really bring them to the point of their most optimum production levels.
Okay, so another question that I got to ask you guys about being based in Mexico is that it sort of was all over the headlines that the current president, whose term's up, I believe, in about a year from now, banned open pit mining on new permits. How much a problem is this in Mexico? The geos I've talked to, they've kind of said it's business as normal and things haven't really changed. Is the political risk something that concerns you at all, being in Mexico?
Yeah, so okay, that is a broad question. I think we could talk about this for an hour. So let's dive into it a little bit, and you can ring the bell whenever you've heard enough of comments on it. Okay, so number one, we have a new batch of mining laws that have not been completely ratified by the Mexican judiciary just yet, and there's going to be a lot of debate back and forth about which of these are constitutional, which of them are going to be allowed. Mexico is a land of laws, and this will be debated back and forth politically and within the courtrooms for a while before I think it settles down. I think that your geological friends are correct. Generally, for most producing companies, this hasn't immediately become a problem. However, it will. The way that the new mining laws are written have all kinds of problematic points to them. What I have said to friends of mine is that these new laws look like they were written by a 6-year-old, and they look like they were written by a 6-year-old who doesn't really like mining, right? It is no great surprise. The AMLO government is not mining friendly. They have not been all the way along. There has not been a new mining concession issued in Mexico for the last 2.5 years. That really should tell us all we need to know about where the Mexican government's view of mining is into the future. With regards to our operations, all of our operations are underground operations. So that whole, restriction of open pit mines, that's not a problem for us right now. And in fact, I think if we broaden the conversation a little bit to other jurisdictions, I think giant size open pit operations are going to have a really, really tough time being permitted in any jurisdiction on planet Earth going forward. Humans don't want them. They do not want big open pit operations, anywhere near them. So how is the mining industry going to change its operations? I think that going back underground, whereas for the last 25 years we've moved away from underground operations to larger open pit operations that perhaps on a per ton basis are less expensive. I think that getting those things permitted anywhere is going to be very difficult. Back to Mexico for a second. The new proposed rules are difficult in a lot of different ways. One is not allowed to borrow any money against the mining concessions themselves. Now, there's some ways around that, and the way that these rules have been written, there are ways around almost everything that's stated in these rules. So again, I think the jury's still out on all of the new rules, but suffice to say, there's nothing mining friendly about any of it, right? These are just more issues, more problems that the mining companies have to hire lawyers and specific consultants to be able to try and weave our way through. That is not helpful.
So let's get back to Guanajuato for a second. What can you tell us about your cap table? I know for a lot of investors that are looking at investing in junior stage companies, they get a little bit nervous that there's certain people behind the company that have cheap shares, or there's a lot of bad stuff that happens in mining that I think that's been to the detriment of the entire arena, where retail investors have kind of put their hands up and they've walked away. We've got the worst operating companies just spending millions and millions of dollars of the company's treasury just marketing the stock so that those people who didn't pay anything for their stock are able to sell their stock into the market. I know from looking at you guys aren't one of those companies, but I was just hoping you could maybe give us some sort of light on your cap table and ultimately your investor base and some of the investors that you have in the company.
Yeah, Guanajuato Silver is a little bit different than a lot of the companies that you see out in the marketplace, and I thank you for pointing that out. I guess the first thing that I would say is Guanajuato Silver was incorporated under a different name, but was incorporated in 1978. It's been a public company in Canada on the Vancouver Stock Exchange originally since the mid 1980s. So it's been around a long time. In terms of people who are involved in the company, a number of the directors have written pretty substantial checks into the company along the way, and you can certainly look at all of the public disclosures. And none of us have sold any meaningful amount of stock along the way, so we are still well involved in that way. Our largest single shareholder is Fidelity. That's the Fidelity Gold and Silver Fund from Boston. They own just under 10% of the company. They did that both through open market purchases and an investment in our last private placement. Endeavor Silver is one of our largest shareholders by virtue of the fact that they took back some shares in partial payment for the El Cubo transaction. Dan Oliver is a fund manager. He runs a fund called Myrmikan from Connecticut. They invest exclusively in microcap silver and gold mining companies. Dan is a big holder of Guanajuato Silver personally and through the fund, and he's been a huge help over the last number of years in terms of attracting additional capital to the company. Eric Sprott's a significant shareholder. I know people who follow our space are always happy to hear that. He wrote a $2 million check at the time that we were buying El Cubo. So I think it's a good mix of institutional and retail players. The stock trades well. It always has some good volume on it, and I think that retail attraction is very helpful. For people who want to buy and sell the stock. If you buy the stock, you want to be able to know that someday, sometime, somehow you'll be able to sell it. And I think that our shares trade well enough to be able to say that you can do that.
So last question for you. For investors watching, what should they be looking out for in terms of any timelines or milestones over the remainder of the year?
Well, we do proudly call ourselves Mexico's fastest growing silver mining company. And I think if you look at the last 2.25 years, you'll see us going from zero production to almost 1 million silver equivalent ounces of production in the last reported quarter. That's not going to change anytime soon. The next number of news releases will be pertaining to additional 43-101 compliant resource estimates and changes of focus in terms of where we want to be, where and how we want to be expanding our production, and discussions regarding profitability. To harken back to something that you said a few minutes ago, Stephen, all of these companies need to be able to act and respond like businesses. And we're going to do our best to be able to do that in what is proving right now to be a very difficult business environment for mining silver in Mexico, especially with the very strong peso that we've experienced in the last 12 months or so.
Well, James, thanks for hopping on here. It was great chatting with you, and hopefully we can have you back on in the future. And I wish you continued success. It's nice to see stories where management teams say what they're going to do and they build up the story. And it's pretty impressive that you guys have gotten to the point where you're doing nearly 1 million ounces of silver per quarter. So congratulations on the success, and I look forward to seeing where you take it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity. I look forward to coming back again soon.
All right, everybody, thank you for watching. If you could do me a big favor, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let us know what you think in the comment section. All right, everybody, thank you for watching.